I'm calling the meeting in order at 1 o'clock officially.
Yeah, get started on time for the first one.
Roll call, please.
Todd? Here. Woodward.
That's here.
There he is, okay. Fleming?
Here.
Berman?
Here.
Quarles? Spiz?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Take a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Moved by Berman, supported by Fleming. Questions, comments on the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, motion carries. Agenda's been approved. Public comment. Anybody here for public comment? Yeah. Excellent. Seeing none, we'll move on. Before we move on to the regular agenda, I'd just like to make a couple opening comments. You know, this being our inaugural meeting of this new committee. I think it's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to learning more about what we as Oakland County do in economic development. Getting some more of the details into the weeds, not too far, but into the weeds, just get a little bit better understanding, and hopefully get a better understanding of how we can work with each other in the future and what do we need to put in place, if anything, to make sure Oakland County is continue to be strong as we go forward into the future. All right. With that, I'll hang that up and move on to the regular agenda. First item is Economic Development and Community Affairs. Resolution approving the provisions of a brownfield plan for the 585 East South Boulevard City of Pontiac project. Moved by Berman, supported by Woodward. Gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Whoa. Look forward to working with you on this new committee. Well, this is a great project. I'll do the executive summary and then Brad will do some of the details on it. This is the United Shore relocation and expansion, and it entails just short of $70 million of new investment for about 600,000 square feet in Pontiac out on South Boulevard. And the job is, the job total, currently it's about 2,100, 2,200 that would be relocated, and their plans are to hire up to another 600. I can tell you that with Director Spanos here in the room and others in business development, we have worked with this company for several years on this project, and it's just incredibly great that they found a piece of real estate that will fit their needs going forward for many years in Oakland County and also in Pontiac. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brad for some of the details on the Brownfield Plan. The Brownfield Plan was approved by our County Brownfield Authority on the 7th of November, or the 9th of November, and then was approved by Pontiac City Council on December the 9th. So, Brad.
Good afternoon. The property itself is located at 585 East South Boulevard, which has seen that stretch of South Boulevard has seen an exciting improvement over the past few years, especially with right across the street is a project that the Board of Commissioners approved, the Brownfield project, Revore Metals. This project itself is going to renovate 600,000 square foot building, as Dan mentioned, the old HQ building, HP building, excuse me. The exciting thing about this is United Shore is a company that's growing substantially over the years, and they're, as of right now, they're only going to do they're renovating the whole buildings, but they're only going to be using 2 floors, so they have room for expansion, which they don't have in the city of Troy right now. That's why they're looking for expansion at this point, or moving to the location. The site itself is considered a facility. It means there's some contaminants in the ground that exceed residential standards or commercial standards for human contact. So there's about $380,000 worth of fill material that needs to be removed from the site and disposed of properly. That's where you get the facility status for as far as the Brownfield project. As Dan already mentioned, the investment in the total jobs, so I won't go into that, but there's $2,377,145 in overall eligible expenses that is the developer, the business is eligible to be reimbursed over the 15 or 11 years for the reimbursement for the brownfield plan. Increases the taxable value, again, an estimate because we won't know for sure until it's fully finished, but about $4.1 million once it's all completed. And be happy to answer any questions if there's any.
Okay, questions? Commissioner Todd?
Thank you. You said South Boulevard. What are the north-south boundaries, please?
It's on the north side of South Boulevard and just east of Woodward.
East of Woodward and west of Updike.
This is near
So-
the old GM.
Yeah, this is an older General Motors facility that really isn't that old, probably about 18, 20 years old. So fairly close to what was the Michigan Motion Picture Studio, and then and that was a part of a large GM truck engineering center.
Okay, as I recall, it borders Bloomfield Township.
Not that site. No,
That site is not?
this site is entirely within the city of Pontiac.
No, I didn't say, it wasn't in Pontiac. It's the South Boulevard is the border between Pontiac and Bloomfield Township. Is the south side of South in Bloomfield Township.
The site is on the north side.
I
of South
understand that's
Boulevard.
Pontiac.
Yeah.
And the south side is also on, South Boulevard is also City of Pontiac, because Reward Metals, and that's all located in the City of Pontiac.
Okay, now, brownfields, is there a limit on brownfields? I don't come from local government, so I want to know what the limitation is on brownfields, both the amount that we can give out to various communities for brownfields, as well as time limits.
There is no amount at the state of Michigan. Michigan was at the forefront of using brownfields to redevelop some of the industrial sites. In our TIF policy at the county, we do look at brownfields as well as other TIFs that are coming to us. You have seen several here at the Board of Commissioners, Corridor Improvement Authorities, and Farmington Hills. So we do look at the brownfield TIF. But in terms of the state, there is no, there's no ceiling in terms of the amount of capture that is held.
Okay, how long is this, there's no time limit on this either?
There's as far as brownfield plans, as far as TIF payback, there's a 30-year cap on it. It can go up to 35 years if there's 5 years, up to 5 years of inactivity at the beginning. But typically, you're looking at a 30-year capture period.
Okay, so they have to remove what, film?
Fill material. It's
Fill?
basically, it's probably from the old historical, there's some, to balance the site, they probably brought in some dirt from the outside, probably from across the street from the old GM site, and just to balance the site. Well, the filled material that brought in was contaminated.
How was that permitted to happen?
It was back before regulations really.
I do have a
oversaw.
similar question on the fill. So is the fill that we're speaking of actually already, it's not piles of dirt, it's already leveled out and developed property, so they're gonna dig all that back out and take it away? Is that what has to happen? 'Cause
Yeah,
I'm
if
pretty
they-
familiar with the site, but not enough to see that there's any areas where contamination would have been, other than been there before they actually developed it.
Yeah, as far as where the building itself is, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing that they, and even if it is, it's encapsulated because there's the concrete slab.
Mhm.
And that's a lot of times what you'll see is, in order to remove the contact of human health aspect of it, they'll just encapsulate it by pouring a concrete floor. Here, they're looking to remove possibly up to much, and they don't know until they actually get in the ground. But the borings show that there is some contaminants in the ground. So if they get in there, they're gonna remove it properly. But it's not underneath the building, it's on more of the outside of
The
the.
parking spaces and stuff, they're gonna dig all that up,
Yeah.
and take that concrete out, and take all that dirt out, and bring in new dirt? That's the plan?
Yeah.
Yes.
And take the dirty dirt to
Hazmat.
certain landfills, regulated landfills.
Okay. Commissioner Tom?
Okay, so they're moving from Troy, and they're bringing how many employees with them, please?
About 2,100.
Okay, all right, so my question then is, or just kind of, in my personal opinion, moving the chess players across the board, Troy is gonna lose 2,100 jobs, they're gonna have a vacant building. What do we do, or if anything, to help Troy fill that building?
Well, we work, as we do with all communities, we're very aggressive in working with our local partners and in companies that we may be working with both here in Oakland County and around the world. I believe in this case that United Shore had a tenant or has a buyer for one of the buildings that they have.
Okay.
So we will assist them and our folks in the city of Troy that we work very closely with almost every day on project. And Irene Spanos, please join us if you would like to add to the narrative.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. I worked with Matt Ishbia on this project for several years. And we obviously, our first goal, and I just want to make this clear, is to keep them in the community that they're in. That's always our first priority, and help them find, if the building doesn't fit, find a different building within that same community. That's always our goal. With this project, that was not an option. There was not enough space. There was no building in Troy that met their needs, and they did want to be in an urban community. So it really came down to two choices: the city of Detroit or the city of Pontiac. And we're happy we worked with them to find the right building in the city of Pontiac. So that's how they ended up in the city of Pontiac. We don't really try to swerve companies to other communities. We try to keep them in their communities. And we will work with the city of Troy. We'll work with and you're right, Dan, Matt does have a lead to purchase the building. And we have 120 projects we're working on currently. Companies that are looking to locate or expand into Oakland County, so that will definitely be a site we'll promote for office.
Okay, I'm going to recuse myself from this vote because of family connections.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions? Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, and thank you, Irene, for that explanation and the whole team. As it relates to the payback, or the cost and investment here to support this brownfield, is it safe to say that had it not been for this brownfield, by not giving this, investing this much resource into improving the property, this project does not happen?
Well, they would, the companies, when they look at the location, they look at many factors. They look at where the talent is, where the talent wants to live. They look at business costs, but they also look at, the bottom line. Where does it make their biggest ROI? So anything we can do to help them locate in our county, and this we do for all our foreign companies too, because it's not just within the state of Michigan. They're competing globally for the location. So we try to bring everything we can, whether it's financial incentives, connections, introductions, to help them be successful here. And with brownfields, we have to think about what they were intended for. They're intended to make these sites viable again, because who would pay the additional cost of going to a brownfield site when they can go down the street a little further out of the community and build on a greenfield site? The whole brownfield incentive was to help revitalize some of these old sites that cost more. And if you look at correct me if I'm wrong, Brad, you're a Brownfield X, the amount that they get as an incentive through the Brownfield TIF is just to clean up the site to make it like a greenfield site. It's not like we're incentivizing them to invest in that site. We're just helping them recoup the cost so that they can look at that site seriously when they're comparing a greenfield site and a brownfield site.
And they're essentially, putting the dollars up front and then recouping that, in this case, as Brad said, over a period of 11 years. So, I don't know if that's a great payback or not. It's probably a little bit long, but they're at risk for taking this piece of real estate that has some issues that they want to remove those. The other thing that will accrue, particularly to Pontiac, would be the income tax that the city has, which is 0.5% for non-residents. So although the current taxes are being paid what's there now, and that will be the base for the next 11 years, the city will receive the income tax for 2100 is is fairly significant, if not very significant.
No, and I agree. I mean, I definitely agree. And I understand. I mean, brownfield, like, from a policy point, generally support. That I struggle with is that I have to clean up the pollution of another corporation that destroyed it, and it's an issue that I've wrestled with from the beginning of time, because it's like, why should the public have to pay to clean up your mess? And I mean, I don't know how to resolve it. I mean, obviously, bringing life into something that's inactive. I mean, almost in general is positive. I mean, you listed off like a bunch of reasons why a company moves, and I agree, and I like the way they order it, and certainly the bottom line's a piece of it. But I'll be honest, I mean, the more and more, I mean, business leaders I talk to, the talent,
Absolutely.
brain drain, and they figure that all the conditions that make it right for someone to want to live there, I mean, needs to be a driving force, which means that we got to be investing in those things, than just, I mean, helping underwrite the bottom line for an individual business. We talked about the 2,100 jobs that just like move lateral, so it's not really a net gain per se by itself, but there's the idea and plan for additional resources, and I understand that it's not a requirement for, I mean, the brownfield to say that you will create this many new jobs. That's not a requirement, but and Brady, I think you talked a little bit about it. Like, what is, I mean, the forecast and growth? What is that?
Their forecast is 600
New jobs.
600 new jobs.
Over those 11 years, or
No.
in the
In
long
the
into
next
the future?
3 to 4 years.
Oh, 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
So, and I'm at, there's a lot of time that's gone on this project, and I don't want to, I'm not going to take it off the rails. But, and I've brought this up in some context in the past. If, for instance, if we wanted to, could we put some conditions that if the projected job growth does not materialize, then I'm not going to give you all the money that I'm going to give up right now. Because for me, I mean, from a public investment, if I'm going into business with you, clean up the property to make this investment worthwhile, certainly the lure of me is like not just moving a company from Troy to Pontiac. That's actually has almost zero lure for me. But the growth potential, the private investment, the economic value of that, the increasing of jobs in the area, that is very attractive. But if there was none, or we didn't hit a certain mark, is there a way that these brownfield plans can be structured such that there's a capture, I'm not going to give you all this money unless we hit some. I would have no problem saying, like, by the end of the 11th year, if I don't have these 600 jobs in place, we're going to give you less money. So I guess, can the deals be structured?
That would be a policy decision.
Right.
You know,
And is there a way to structure those deals? I'm not even advocating for this at this point because of where we are in this process. But I mean, talking long term, that obviously job growth, is a key to it. And I know of too many deals in which the job forecast is so unbelievable. I'll point to our friends at the state, and then they don't materialize, and a lot of money's been spent, and I'm thinking, I'm left holding the bag, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to hold your bag. I will reward performance, and you don't hit performance, you don't get the public's investment into your firm.
As far as your question, as far as we can build in, we can't build into the brownfield plan itself. There's reimbursement and development agreements that you may be able to structure into, and the development agreements generally with the local municipality. But even with that, it's going to be difficult to change the structure without policy of the brownfield plan of the reimbursement of the taxes, as far as when we tell the locals to stop, sending in shift checks because X didn't happen. But to answer your question right away, without policy, the brownfield plan itself cannot be changed. It'd be something that would have to be done in a reimbursement and development agreement.
Got it.
I just wanted to add 2 things. With this particular company, we have worked on several projects with them in the past where they have estimated a certain number of job growth, and in the last 2 projects, they surpassed both of their goals. So I feel very confident. And the other thing that would concern me by putting that type of requirement in would be other factors that are beyond our control that affect the economy or affect their business. And to put that in would be an extra hurdle that a company would have compared to another site in the United States. that may not have that requirement. That would put us in a disadvantage. So that kind of concerns me. And the third point that I wanted to make is we're investing in this site, and regardless of what the job creation is, the site will be cleaned up. So it will be cleaned up, and it will be not a danger to society anymore.
And I think that's an important thing, that the Brownfield program was established to get these, especially in urban areas, get them back cleaned up and able to be developed on again. So end of the day, if a company unfortunately goes under, the bottom line is you still have a clean piece of property where you can, in a prime location, generally in an urban
Right.
area, where another company can move in into a clean piece of land.
I'll say Commissioner Taub was next. Commissioner Taub?
Yeah, I agree with Dave on one issue. I recall at the state that we had some problem with alternative energy and windmills, and really blew me away. Thank you.
Commissioner Berman?
Windmills.
I mean, I just want to add, and, you know, they started going down the path that I was going to mention, which is, you know, the brownfield, the way in which it's structured and the reason why that program was developed was to clean the property, get it to viability, and in the event that, you know, for whatever reason the business fails, we still now have a viable property that we can use that was invested in to get back to viability. So now to your point, I've in my private business world, I've experienced ways in which either the local communities or the state of Michigan, depending on the size of the project, they have those types of restrictions typically and those types of covenants in any sort of incentive package that they provide to you. It's typically, you know, through either tax abatements that you're receiving at the local level and or job creation dollars that are tied to potential clawbacks in the event that you don't produce the forecasted number of jobs in that period of time. So that's typically where you see those caveats as opposed to the brownfield.
Yeah, the brownfield really is to kind of level the playing field as best as possible between the impacted site and a green field. And I think it's done pretty well. We have not seen much in the way of greenfield development in this last 7 or 8 years on the industrial, office, or commercial sector. We've seen brownfield projects and we've seen existing space get utilized. Now we're starting to see a few speculative type buildings in the Auburn Hills and in the Novi area, but much less than what I would have thought.
Commissioner Woodward, do you have any answer?
Well, I just want one final.
Okay, go ahead.
Just one final note, and I think is important to consider here is that, you know, United Shore moving into Pontiac could serve as a catalyst for future growth and opportunity, where you see a company of this size, of this nature, of this magnitude, with that number of people that are now going to be working, potentially living, playing in that area. It could be a great investment, not only from a brownfield perspective, but whether the city of Pontiac or potentially the state of Michigan is going to provide extra incentives to hopefully encourage others, right, to follow suit. And I think that's an important consideration.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I agree. I mean, this project, this firm, I agree. I think they've demonstrated a great track record. I think the catalyst opportunity is tremendous, and that's wonderful. And some of these questions are getting to brownfield policy broadly, and I'm taking a little latitude in me to talk about them. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, I mean, that out of the gate. I mean, I guess kind of the other question, and this is where I just my ignorance is there. And this is where I wrestle with the brownfield policies, is because if this firm, I have no doubt, will not pollute the land that we clean up, but there are developments where we can clean up the land and the company pollutes the land, and then we're stuck. I mean, again, we bring it up to this level of viability, we clean up the land, and the consequence and penalty for the next person is low to keep the land clean. And that's, and I wrestle with that, and I don't know, I actually don't have a solution to it, and this is where my unease with some of this, comes into play. But, but lastly, the other thing is that as we want to enhance and, clean up other properties, like, two questions. One, do we have an aggregate amount of, like, what's the brownfield public investment in brownfields countywide that, we have to date? I we can go by project, but what is, like, the public investment in this, and where is that? That's the first question. And then the second is, we spend a lot of time trying to, appropriately, to lure, we want the investment, we want the growth and all those types of things. But we also have small manufacturing that's maybe engaged in practices in the past that would love to be cleaned up to actually increase the viability of that property, and maybe thereby the tax base, and in areas that they might not be moving, but it's about investing and helping them clean up the ground so that it's viable for other things. And so, that's a situation, I guess, it's not really development of new stuff, but cleaning up existing stuff while something's operating. So, and this seems to be like a tool that could be used in that capacity, but I guess the question is why. So the first one is like the aggregate quantitative, like what's our public investment in brownfield, and I guess you probably have to pick a time frame to make that assessment. And then
I don't have the figure with me, but I can get it.
Yeah,
I know
we do
the
have it.
treasurer's office has in the last year done a report.
Okay.
So I can relocate that and
Maybe
shoot
if
that.
I can, or maybe that's something we could talk about, because as under other business,
Other business,
we
okay,
talk
great.
about
Yeah, things we want.
future.
Oh,
Right?
beautiful.
So
Mhm.
maybe it's something we can start
Sounds good.
creating.
And
something
then I guess
talk
on the
about
latter,
future versus continue.
on the ladder of
Topic.
working with, particularly our manufacturing areas, of cleaning up their property before product goes to, I'd like to be actually cleaned up before.
But I believe this site, they went bankrupt and.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and
Brad
it leaves them
may
with me to
speak a
clean
little
up.
bit. I know, the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality does a pretty good enforcement job. They can't be out there and checking everything. And they do have some programs to assist manufacturers in some marginal site cleanup in communities. So, we also have our assessment program, which helps companies understand, and that's the EPA grant that we received 2 years ago for $600,000. We do have that for companies that not are just investigating, but they have a project. They have an expansion project, or somebody's going to buy their building and reinvest in it.
Mhm.
So that is very helpful for some of these situations for phase 1 or phase 2.
Hey,
I would say Commissioner Fleming had
Yeah.
a question.
First of all, United Shore has been a great corporate citizen in Troy, and I'm disappointed that they're leaving. But I appreciate the fact that you did your due diligence. I know you worked in Troy, tried to find a home for them there. And I'll support this, although I regret that they're leaving. But I think every time we have an opportunity to keep a business in the existing municipality, we need to do our due diligence and make sure we do everything we can to try to help keep them there. But they're a growing concern. And it's unfortunate for Troy, but great for Pontiac, and maybe the next time it'll go the other direction.
Absolutely.
So I don't think we're playing favorites, trying to put someone in Pontiac, although I'm happy for Pontiac and disappointed for Troy, but
Yep.
please, let's always do our due diligence to make sure we do everything possible to keep businesses in existing municipalities and everything like that.
And we work with the local community.
Yeah, and I know you work very closely with Troy, I know that, and with all the communities, but the fact of the matter is, if they weren't going to Pontiac, I think we would probably had an opportunity to go to Detroit, and that wouldn't be all bad either. I mean, it stays in the region,
Stay in the
they're in the
state, stay in the
state,
region.
so I'm not into fighting, or just give whatever the best opportunity is, but if they'd gone to Detroit, that wouldn't have been a total loss either, so,
Right.
okay?
Good point.
Mr. Woodward, did you have anything else on this topic?
Yeah, I guess it speaks more to policy, like how do we make sure that our economic tools are rewarding the incumbency operator? This is brownfield. The brownfield tool is a very powerful tool, and it's a great tool that enhances and cleans up the property, everything. And so I acknowledge that. I also that it's a tool that actually incentivizes moving, whether it's moving within the county or whatever. And there's a lot of economic tools that reward that action, and frankly not enough to support, hey, I've been operating this small tool and die shop for 40 years, and I mean, none of these tools become available to them to improving their bottom line. So it's
Well-
this is the, I mean, but it's a broader policy
It's a
question.
broader policy.
But
With
it's on my mind.
With what you mentioned as far as the
Take note.
current operation of those smaller tool and die shops that have been around for 40 years and they're operating, you know, the brownfield law states that you can't be the reason for the contamination. So you're operating for 40 years, so there's a pretty good chance without selling that building that they're not gonna be eligible for any brownfield incentives because they could have been the reason or are the reason that the property may be contaminated.
Or something that happened in year 41. That's why the property was so cheap.
And see that, and with the state of Michigan, with the BEA laws now, as far as when you're purchasing new land, as far as you put together a BEA and turn it to the state, that basically says, this is what was on the site when I purchased it, you know, this is what our operation's gonna be, we're not gonna cause any contamination, and if we do, we know who the contamination was caused by, it's because you have that BEA standard from now on.
That's good to know.
It's a challenge.
Commissioner Berman, did you have anything else to add?
Now we can talk about other business.
Okay. And then Commissioner Quarles, anything?
No.
Commissioner Taub?
Yeah, she mentioned Detroit, and so on their vein, what's going on with Amazon?
Well, hold on, that's a different topic. We'll get to that. We'll get to
They may-
that.
They may be leaving.
No, they're staying. We got questions for them.
I don't think we're leaving. We can stay as long as you need us to. We're happy
All
to
right.
stay.
So if no other question on the topic, roll call, please.
Taub?
I'd rather
She's-
keep my-
Oh, I'm sorry. Woodward?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yeah.
Berman?
Yes.
Quarles?
Yes.
Spiz?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With
Thank
that-
you. We're staying. We're not going
Okay.
anywhere.
I need to make an announcement to set a public hearing for the Oakland County Board of Commissioners on January 17th at 7 p.m. for the resolution approving the provisions of a brownfield plan for the 585 East South Boulevard City of Pontiac project. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to communications, which I don't think we have any. With that, we'll move on to other business, which I think there's a couple points. First one, I know Commissioner Berman has a request or a question about the start time of this committee meeting.
Okay.
It currently starts at 1 o'clock. Commissioner Berman would like to pull that ahead to like noon if we could, but the reason I set it for 1 o'clock originally was I know you guys had lunchtime, and I really didn't want to intrude on your lunchtime, but it's really your guys' call. If it's something you guys are willing to do, I think we can have a discussion, but I think it falls on you more than.
Commissioner Berman by lunch.
Now,
Okay,
if you-
we're in.
I might vote for it.
It's not going quite that far.
Commissioner Tom.
I don't think it's fair. I mean, I understand where you're at, but these folks often have business lunches, and I think, you know, well, I was gonna suggest 1:30, but.
The opposite direction what Tom is looking for.
Okay.
I know Tom, because there's the Public Services Committee prior to this that I know I sit on and he sits on. So then
We'll
you
go out to
have-
lunch together.
Then we have that thing in between. So it's, but I don't want to do it for us because it's really, I'll adjust where I need to. It's really, I don't want to intrude on what you guys have to do every day.
I just
and your lunchtime.
wanted to raise
The question.
and see if there was a consensus at least that we could agree to moving it either. I mean, look, if you wanted to push it the other way, that would actually, I would prefer it to be at 3, 4 o'clock than I would at 1 o'clock or moving it to noon, just because there's, public services maybe will go to 11:30. And I just have dead downtime in between 11:30 and 1. If I had
So you're
more
being
time in
selfish.
between.
That's what you're telling me.
Well, look, I'm just asking, maybe other people have a similar type of.
All right, we'll go around the
issue.
table. Commissioner Woodward, what do you think? What works best for you from a start time?
Fixed on Tuesday.
Fixed on Tuesday.
Fixed on Tuesday.
Fixed on Tuesday.
I thought I'd call the camp going later and starting later in the day for the same reason.
Commissioner Quarles, what do you think?
If I really had my choice, I would say morning. However.
6 a.m., that's good.
Yeah, but later.
Is there anybody on this, are you still on planning and building?
No.
So nobody here is on planning and building?
No, just you.
I'm not on planning and building anymore.
Oh,
Right,
so,
you're
no.
on this
So
one.
we could do this one before.
I'm planning buildings before this. isn't it?
Oh,
Right.
oh, what time are they at?
9?
9:30, then public services at 11, this is
Yeah.
scheduled for 1.
So you later, you're earlier.
No, I was kidding, but they're, unless there was opportunity. No, they're later.
So later than 1
Yeah.
o'clock.
which I thought was at 1:30.
Tom, I'm skipping you. Wait.
That would've been my fault.
Morning would be better, but that's,
We could do
So is there-
3:30 before planning and zoning.
No, because there's,
I'm not even
Coordinating
one, it's
zoning.
a special trip for me here, so.
So either way, whatever time is whatever time. Commissioner Tom?
Later, like maybe 2 o'clock, 2:30. You okay with me?
How late? Okay, I think that there's somewhat of a consensus on later versus earlier. So how much later is doable for everybody, including you guys? Actually, let me ask you this
Well,
first.
well,
Is later
better
for
just
you?
We'll be available.
Yeah,
We'll be
absolutely.
available.
Yeah, but would noon or 1 be better than like 3?
Well, for Dan, myself, and Matt, anytime, noon would be fine. We just arrange our schedule around. But for some of our employees that are merit employees, we do want them to take their lunch.
Yeah, okay.
So if we bring in people
So do they eat
to,
at noon or do they eat at 1?
So, okay,
it's,
Put it in picky.
it's a
Let
mix.
them run.
okay, so 1:30 would be best for me because I have library board, thanks for reminding me, once a month, on Tuesdays.
Do we have any conflicts?
That's my lunch.
No, I mean, you said it's once a month, but we meet, is it on the Tuesday that we meet, or is it a different Tuesday? Do we know that?
We don't know. We tried to tell them to schedule it when there weren't any meetings here, and it's at 3 o'clock, so that would, 1:30 would be better for me, or even 2, I could, 2 o'clock, I don't know.
It's not gonna be much employees online, I can figure out.
Well, let me just say,
Oh,
if it's going to be an afternoon, and it certainly looks like that's what's going to take place, I would prefer at least 1:30 and beyond. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm open to that. Yeah.
They are.
Really trying
Tom?
to cut this day in half.
Yeah. Tom is really trying to cut.
I mean, is there an opposition to 3? I mean, just throw it out there.
Yeah,
Oh,
because
so
I
she
have
could-
library board once a month,
Oh, after.
and I have to be there.
2 o'clock? Split the difference?
Look, I'll go with the consensus, I'll make it work.
Doesn't matter.
If I could make 1 work, I'll make 2 work, it's just not
I
ideal.
would.
Noon's just best.
That's right, but.
Yeah,
You're-
1 is just, I don't
too
know what
tight.
it is. It just don't click in my mind. Yeah, I know you told me 1:30, and it just,
Yeah, I
that
think
one
I
step.
thought it was really good, actually. That's why I answered, I screwed up.
1:30 would be a good compromise. Between 1 and 2.
It's gonna backfire on Mr. Berman here.
I was gonna come in hard with 4, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean.
I'm open, I'm flexible, I'll adjust.
I
It's
would
not up to
too.
me, and I think they will
End
too,
of
so
my
it's really,
That's exactly what, I mean, I would.
Then let's just do 4.
I would do it.
After your library.
Oh, no, that goes till 5, you have no idea.
yeah, that's another animal. That's
That's
another
a
animal.
whole other thing.
Aye, aye, aye. Guys make this
Well,
difficult.
split the difference if you 1:30, that'll give you,
Can we do like a 5 o'clock on a different day?
no.
5 AM.
All right, let's not decide it at the moment. We can trade a few emails or something.
Well, it's probably a better time because we're all sitting here.
Yeah, I think so too.
So leave it at 1
Friday
o'clock?
morning?
No. Can we go to 1:30?
1:30, all right, we agreed, 1:30.
Okay, let me get a consensus who agrees on 1:30.
I mean, I was compliant with what was going on, but I mean,
No, fine. Okay, we'll move it to
this time
1:30.
sucks.
1:30 is fine, just because that's what Dave thought it was originally.
And then
Can we just do 2 then? Just 2? 2?
Okay.
If we're gonna push it back, can we push it back a little more than 2?
Okay,
There's a
I'm
lot
good
on
with
the
that.
agenda. Last an
I'll
hour
vote for
for an
You vote
hour.
for, okay, who's in favor of 2?
That's fine.
I'm okay, as long as it's not 1.
Where is your library board?
In the library,
Here.
here.
Make it
So
All right, 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock? Everybody good with 2 o'clock?
That's fine.
2 o'clock?
Good.
Perfect.
2 o'clock?
I don't know
You guys
about-
okay
It's
with 2
kind of
o'clock?
part of the deal. If I have library board, you're gonna have a short agenda.
I think that's fair.
That's good.
Okay, new start time will be 2 PM going forward. Yeah, yeah. All right. Other part of, or next part of other business. Where do we go? Where do we see us going from here? I know in some of the discussions via emails, kind of what's what's the scope of this committee, what are we gonna do? You know, Commissioner Woodward brought up, doing some discussions on brownfield, which, in policy, which I think is a great topic we can talk about. And I believe there's been some emails floating around of you guys potentially coming in and doing I don't wanna go into the weeds presentation, but a presentation on everything that you guys are involved in from a, not a project standpoint yet, but that might
Overview.
come, an overview of everything you do. You know, I know in the past you put that big booklet together, I don't want all that paperwork, I just want more of an open discussion on what's going on, what are you guys doing? Because I know some things, but I'm sure I don't know of everything, I'm sure some of the other commissioners are the same. Just give us a good eye so we can get a good, fresh approach on what some of our questions might be going forward. I know Dave's got the brownfield, but
Absolutely.
there might be others.
Okay. I think we should throw in with brownfields, what I just said before, TIFs and DDAs, so that we know what the difference is. I did not come from local government. I started here, and I still struggle with it, quite frankly. And the tax implications, because I don't want, one of the things I would hate to see is county parks and county board losing money on stuff like that. I know that there's been something at MAC to put a time limit on DDAs and TIFs,
Yeah.
and I would like to look into that as well, because I don't want to eliminate them, I really don't.
Well, it may be part of the presentation, you
Well,
guys can include some
yeah,
definitions
yeah.
and some outlines of what
Right, because
some of these things
Absolutely.
are.
Mhm.
'cause
I
know we hear them
remember
all.
the discussion that happened with Mr. Wilder down in Wayne County, I've forgotten what community he represents, you may know, in which he used his DDA money to build a city hall. And that was absolutely forbidden under DDA law, okay, absolutely. And so people said, well, why did you do it? You knew it was forbidden. Well, the people wouldn't vote for it. Excuse me? I mean, people in his community wouldn't vote for the new city hall. So he just went ahead and built it with DDA money. I think that kind of stuff can't be going on. You know, if people don't want a new city hall. Remember, the government is the people, not the people are not.
The government's not big.
Anyway,
All right.
so I'd like to look into that kind of stuff.
So can you make that
On the
summary?
other hand, I don't want to eliminate development, that goes hand in glove with it, of course not, but.
And our new TIF policy kind of is very clear as to what our parameters are as a county in terms of both any taxing jurisdiction. So I think our communities know what that policy is now, so they only bring projects that fit that policy.
That would be very, very helpful to know all that, because I had a major struggle in one of my communities, not too long ago, and I think it would behoove all of us to understand what we can and cannot. When we go forth to our communities, and they say we'd like a DDA or a TIF,
Mhm.
or we've got brownfields, and we can respond properly.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Quarles?
Much of what I was going to ask Commissioner Todd said. The only other thing I would add to that is I would like a better understanding of your structure.
Oh, okay.
And if I
Yeah.
could.
Yep.
Absolutely. We have an organization
Yeah.
chart for our department.
Right.
We can share that and
Yeah,
then,
put that as part of your presentation, maybe a brief
Absolutely.
outline of what each group does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that.
So I think
that's
we have an
what I-
idea, but I'm sure we're missing something.
Yeah, that would be a big help to me.
wonderful, we'll do that.
Great idea. Commissioner Woodward?
So I have a couple things. So I would be very interested in if this task force, we actually got some money set aside to explore some workforce development ideas and partnerships.
Did you say task force?
No, did I say task force? I didn't
I
mean
think
this
you did.
committee.
Committee, okay.
Task force. I meant committee, excuse me, we are a committee. Really doing the deep dive workforce development, particular areas, obviously, the development and keeping attraction of talent. But equally important to me is, I don't know, it has a name, but it's like, it's those on the opposite end of the workforce spectrum. It's 50 and up, and the trend, with this economy and how fast it's moving, and the displacement factor, and frankly, from the numbers are pretty staggering about those who are still reeling from the Great Recession, and what's our workforce development strategy to embark on that. And then I would be remiss if I don't bring up transit. My understanding is that I guess I don't even know to the degree our economic development team is intersecting with a RTA 2.0 presentation that's coming to the end of this month. The Big Four are going to roll out a plan that I have no idea,
And
which
the
is,
table does.
so, I mean, that, but also integrating, I mean, to what degree how that transit and I think all the intermodal transportation integrates into our economic development strategy. I know it definitely intersects with our Main Street programs and things like that, but is it fully integrating with all the other aspects? And so I think that, just because I read about it yesterday, which, well, that's a whole nother issue that I read about it and didn't have no clue, but to the degree in which it's something that, I mean, that we're going down that path, or even looking at our incumbent transit systems and how it integrates with our economic development strategy.
Okay.
So I'll stop there.
Commissioner Cobb?
Yeah, to that, addressing that, Dave, there will be a presentation at your caucus and our caucus about that same issue by Jerry Poisson.
I'm 17.
Which issue is that?
RTA.
Okay.
So, we may do a joint, I don't know, we haven't gotten that far.
be told. I'm going to be told.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
well,
agree.
I'm just telling you.
All right.
All right, anything
Yeah,
else
let
from,
us-
does that give you guys some ideas of kind of what we're
Yes.
hoping to go
Yes.
down that path? I'm sure we'll be
Absolutely.
somewhat dynamic. I'm looking to be somewhat dynamic and flexible.
We will have, we're supposed to be getting our hard piece delivered on Monday as far as an OCBRA progress report.
Mhm.
It's a nice 28-page update of what we've been doing for the last 2.5 years. It's a great piece we put together, so hopefully on the next agenda, we can, if we have it by next week, we
Yeah.
can get onto the next agenda, and you can see the great projects we've done over the past 2
Yeah,
years.
and we're looking, at least from my perspective, we're looking to be a little bit flexible based on your guys' schedule, because I understand you guys are busy and there's a lot of things going on. But we also want to get as much information to us as we can, as fast as we can. And one other thing that I would like to request, and I don't know if you guys have it, is somewhat, I'm going to call it a calendar for lack of a better term. I know there's a lot of things you guys do and a lot of things you go to, but there may be some people on this committee who might want to attend some of those events. If you guys have a general calendar you might be able to share with us, either on a per meeting basis or through just a general email throughout the staff, so we get a good idea. So I know Matt's down at CES right now. There's a lot of other good things I know that Matt goes to and that you guys go to help support, and there's a lot of great programs, which I know I've seen a couple of them that are put on, that I think we need to get a little bit more, I don't want to say involved in, because I don't really necessarily want to get involved, but I would like to be aware of
Well,
that, so we
attend.
want to attend.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep. Things like the annual economic outlook forecast.
Yeah.
And,
Our Tech 248 meetups.
Yeah.
Yep, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's on our calendar, because usually what I found, been doing this long enough, that I get an email 2 days before it happens, and it's like, well, unfortunately, I can't make it that day. If I had known 2 weeks, I probably could have scheduled around it. So
Right.
the more I can forecast out, the better it is. That's the way I look at it. Commissioner Koros, did you have anything?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and I hate to revisit our time again, but Wednesday mornings are available. An option, that is option, you've heard.
I'd have to look at my calendar for Wednesday mornings. I didn't look at that.
I'm in October right now, changing my calendar.
At 2 o'clock? I guess we can have another discussion at the next meeting. How's that? I just want to get something set down. I don't want to be adjusting all the time. I don't know. I'd have to look.
Wednesday morning? No, we don't.
We got HR on Wednesdays. It's at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
It started here because we had people on public services already here.
Yeah. All right, anything else for other business at this point?
Question about Amazon, just I think.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Just curiosity.
Just like kind of round out.
Yeah. So we submitted sites for the Amazon proposal. From what we've been told from, Dan Gilbert's team, who's the lead for our region, Grand Rapids and Detroit were the only MSAs in Michigan that met their requirements. And so now we are waiting to see if we make the first cut and what that
Wait,
means.
When you say Detroit, you mean Metro?
Metro Detroit, correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
Because we did include sites like I think the Silverdome
Yeah,
and the Northland Center.
Correct.
Southfield put together quite a proposal.
right.
So they were receptive to including those in the bigger package.
And we provided a lot of information on demographic, our school systems, because they were looking at the suburbs for some of where the employees would probably live. So we spent a week providing information. We're definitely partners in that project.
So they understand that we have very affordable housing compared to the east and the west coast. in the Chicago area.
Oh, yeah, we supplied them with a lot of
Nice family
information.
home for a tenth of the prices in LA.
Right. Our one-stop shop actually
But our
did something very
transit
interesting.
is a little underwhelming.
Our one-stop shop did something very interesting where they took Seattle and the business makeup of Seattle, and they did the business makeup of Metro Detroit using GIS, and that it showed the similarities. So that was very interesting. That I thought probably gave us a few extra brownie points.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yeah, I mean, along that, so I read about the proposal being sent, some of the highlights, the presses, reported on it, but I have never actually seen the proposal.
I haven't either. The public partners have not either.
Oh,
Greatest collaborative effort.
Yeah.
Who has the,
Yeah.
can I get the
Does
proposal?
somebody know Gilbert?
No, Phil sent that to me, we have.
Okay, so we have it, so we could, I would just like to see it, because I think, at a minimum.
It's very large.
I would like
It's very large, right, I like a
How about a
PDF.
Cliff Notes version?
I like a PDF, I'd read it, because I think.
I'd like to see it too. We did a lot of work for it.
Actually, I believe it was like 8 to 10 pages that Amazon said, we don't want volume. So it was fairly brief,
Right.
and then there was the appendix, which was.
And this is, a couple things. So, well, I'm not going to talk specifically about the development. I think the opportunity that it presented, and I think it's just based on, we're talking about the size of the investment, the degree it brought people to the table to start talking. I actually, and I might be conflating things, but a acceleration of shared urgency around transit might very well be a result of it's definitely for me like the red flag. If you let me name all the other areas, we can put as many flowers on the buses as possible today, but this is not a transit system that's necessary to move the population that we're
What do
talking
you think
about.
Dave's goal is for 2018?
No, I got lots of thoughts about that. Even the kind of the rumors that I'm hearing. The point is that I think it was an amazing exercise, and the speed in which people were willing to try to figure out what can we get to, and I think, which is why I've kind of asked anecdotally, like, I've actually never seen. I know it was submitted. I know all this type of stuff. It was reported on. I would love to see it, to see where it has, because to me, the other bigger question that it brings up is these things are in motion already. And though I'm not really big in going down rabbit holes to chase individual projects, the scale up here warrants maybe a little more of a jump. But how does this align with the economic development strategies of our local communities? How does it? How does it inform? A regional economic strategy, and which I hope that this is not just a flash in the pan exercise. That this becomes potentially a foundation, and how do we grow as a region, whether Amazon HQ2 is here or not. There is I continue to look at a significant level of capital, lots of land, an amazing workforce, and a great place to live. That these are all the ingredients to really grow an economy and to grow other things. So I'm done.
Thanks, Mr. Woodward. Anybody else? Any other business or comments? If not, I'll call us adjourned at 1:53.